Why was everyone staring at her? Maybe it was because she didn't look scared. Or maybe because, unlike the rest, she didn't need to be told what this place was. The bus hissed to a stop in front of the Naval Special Warfare Training Center, its brakes screaming like the nerves of everyone inside. A cloud of salt air rolled in from the Pacific, mixing with the cold smell of diesel and steel. Sarah Martinez pressed her face against the fogged glass. For a long second she didn't move. She just breathed, slow, steady, like a diver right before descent. This was it. 3 years of waiting. 4 years of Navy service. A lifetime of proving she belonged. At 24, she was older than most of the recruits stepping off that bus. Older and quieter. When the door hissed open, the morning light hit her boots. She stepped down and felt the grit of the concrete beneath her soles, the same ground thousands had stood on before being broken, remade, or sent home. Around her, chatter buzzed, nervous laughter whispered bets, a few shaky smiles. But Sarah moved like she already knew where to go. Her civilian clothes were plain. Her dark hair was tied in a regulation bun. Nothing about her appearance shouted different. And yet, everyone seemed to know she was. Move it, move it, move it. The drill sergeant's voice cracked through the air like a rifle shot. Welcome to hell, ladies and gentlemen. You've got 30 seconds to grab your gear and form a line. Clock's ticking. The recruits scattered in chaos. Duffel bags slammed into knees, boots scraped. Someone tripped, someone else swore. Sarah didn't rush. She shouldered her duffel and moved with quiet precision, no wasted motion, no panic. When she reached the line, a tall recruit with linebacker shoulders leaned toward her. His name tag read THOMPSON. The smirk came before the words. "You sure you're in the right place, sweetheart?" he whispered. "I think the yoga studio's down the road." Sarah didn't flinch, didn't even look at him. The sergeant paced in front of them, a man carved out of gravel and experience, his forearms lined with scars that didn't need explanation. "Look around," he barked. "Most of you won't make it through the week. This isn't your grandma's boot camp. This is special operations prep. You think you're tough because you played football, because you won some high school boxing match. Forget everything you think you know about yourselves. Out here, pain's not the enemy, it's the language." His eyes swept the line. When they passed over Sarah, they lingered, not because she stood out, but because she didn't. As he spoke, Sarah's thoughts drifted, not away, but inward, to the promise she'd made years ago, to the folded flag that still sat on her mother's mantle, to the memory of a Marine's hand on her shoulder the day she said goodbye. She served 4 years in Navy communications, efficient, respected, invisible. But every mission she supported from behind a console only deepened the hunger. She didn't just want to transmit orders. She wanted to be out there where orders mattered. Now she was here, finally where she belonged, and she knew every eye would judge her twice, once for being new and again for being her. The first day was a blur of paperwork, medical checks, and assessments designed to strip away pretense. Sweat before sleep, pain before food, strength before comfort. When the first physical test came, Sarah dropped to the ground and started push-ups. The men beside her grunted, swore, struggled to keep pace. She didn't. Her breathing stayed calm, rhythmic, like music only she could hear. When the run came, a full mile under 7 minutes, she crossed the finish line near the front. No celebration, no smile, just control. She saw the glances, the quick, assessing looks, the surprise. But surprise wasn't respect. By lunch, the chatter had returned. Sarah sat alone at a steel table in the mess hall, methodically refueling chicken, rice, water. Around her, voices rose and fell like waves. Every now and then, laughter came from Thompson's table and eyes flicked her way. "Mind if I sit?" Sarah looked up. Another recruit, young, maybe 21, with short blonde hair and green eyes that hadn't learned caution yet. The name tag read Johnson. "Sure," Sarah said simply. I'm Kelly, the woman offered, sitting down with a bright smile. You crushed the PT test this morning, made it look easy. It gets easier, Sarah said without looking up. Kelly laughed. I hope so. I thought I was in shape. Guess not. Then, quieter, some of the guys are already making bets about which of us will wash out first. Sarah wasn't surprised. Let them bet. Their opinion doesn't decide who finishes. Kelly nodded, chewing thoughtfully. You talk like you've done this before. I've done harder, Sarah said, her tone soft but unshakable. That afternoon, the teams were split for the obstacle course, an elaborate maze of mud, rope, and steel. Sarah found herself placed in Thompson's group. The tension was instant. All right, Princess, Thompson said, hoisting a heavy ammo box. Why don't you take something lighter? We don't want you slowing us down. Without a word, Sarah bent and lifted one of the heaviest packs, 60 pounds of dead weight in defiance. The air thickened. A few recruits exchanged glances. Then the sergeant's whistle screamed and they were off. Mud swallowed boots, barbed wire kissed backs. The sun beat down like a hammer. Sarah moved in silence, no grunting, no wasted anger. She crawled, climbed, ran, fell, and got up again. Her lungs burned, but her mind stayed cold. Halfway through, a kid named Phillips, maybe 19, scared, sweating through his uniform, started to fade. His breathing broke into sharp gasps. Sarah moved beside him. Switch with me, she said. I can handle it, he protested weakly. I know, she said, but we're a team. She took part of his weight and kept moving. Thompson rolled his eyes. Great, babysitting duty. This isn't summer camp. But the drill sergeant was watching, clipboard in hand, expression unreadable. His eyes tracked Sarah's every motion. By the time they finished, Sarah's muscles screamed, but she didn't show it. She just stood at attention, breathing quietly as the others collapsed around her. The sergeant didn't say a word. He didn't need to. That night, as the barracks lights dimmed, Sarah sat on the edge of her bunk, methodically folding her gear. Around her, whispers drifted, names, bets, laughter. She caught fragments. She'll quit by week 2. She's just coasting. Bet she's got a desk job waiting when this fails. Sarah smiled faintly in the dark. If they only knew. Better to be underestimated. It made the victory cleaner. She lay down, eyes open to the shadows above. Somewhere outside, the Pacific wind howled against the training center's walls. It reminded her of another sound, one she'd never forget, the hollow ring of a rifle salute at her father's funeral. Gunnery Sergeant Roberto Martinez. Killed in action, Afghanistan. She remembered the flag folded in her mother's trembling hands. She remembered the silence that followed the gunfire, the kind that doesn't fade but settles in your bones. That silence was what had brought her here. The next days blurred into exhaustion. The workouts doubled. The insults sharpened. Her boots wore raw against her ankles. Her hands split open from rope burns. But she didn't quit. Not because she wanted to prove something to them, but because she had promised herself she wouldn't let him down. The harassment started small, misplaced gear, swapped canteens, accidental bumps during training. Thompson's voice became a constant buzz. Don't worry, Martinez, we know you're trying. Or, take it easy, we'll slow down for you. Always said just loud enough to sound innocent, always with that grin. But Sarah had learned that anger was fuel and wasted fuel burns out too fast. So she held it, controlled it, turned it into focus. When the run got longer, she ran harder. When they swam laps in icy water, she stayed in until her lips went blue. When the instructors called for volunteers, her hand went up first. Every day she absorbed more pain, pressure, doubt, and every night she pushed it down into steel. Kelly noticed. You never react, she said one evening, sitting beside Sarah after a brutal endurance circuit. They're trying to break you and you just don't crack. Sarah wiped sweat from her brow. People show who they are when they think you're weak. Let them talk. I'll answer later. The next morning, she woke to find her locker rearranged, gear missing, essentials hidden. Someone was escalating. She fixed everything in silence, arrived at formation on time, and passed inspection anyway. If they wanted her gone, they'd have to try harder. That night, as lights out fell across the barracks, Sarah rolled up her sleeve in the dark. Beneath the dim glow of a security lamp outside the window, a piece of ink shimmered faintly on her upper arm, lines of black and gray, intricate and sacred. The tattoo she kept hidden. A Marine Corps eagle and anchor, woven with a Navy anchor, surrounded by coordinates and names, and a single inscription that still caught her breath every time she read it. Gunnery Sergeant Roberto Martinez, KIA, Afghanistan, 2011. Her father, her reason, her compass. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more tests, more chances for them to doubt her. But that was fine, because she didn't need them to believe. She just needed to endure long enough for them to see what real strength looked like. She closed her eyes. Somewhere outside, the wind shifted, carrying the faint smell of salt and rust from the ocean. Sarah breathed it in. Slow, steady, ready. And in that silence between breaths, that narrow space where fear and purpose coexist, she felt the faint echo of her father's voice, calm and steady as always. Hold the line, kiddo. Always hold the line. She woke before the alarm, the kind of wake-up that comes from instinct, not rest. Something felt wrong. The barracks were still dark, the air heavy with the mix of sweat, detergent, and salt. Rows of sleeping recruits breathed in sync, unaware. Sarah sat up quietly, boots hitting the cold floor. Her hand reached for her gear bag and froze. It was open. Everything inside had been rearranged again, not missing this time, but moved. Her uniform shirt crumpled instead of folded. Her water canteen half empty. A smear of boot polish across her field notebook. Subtle, but deliberate. For a moment she just stared. The anger tried to rise hot, bitter, but she smothered it with discipline. They wanted her reaction. They wanted her cracks to show. Instead, she repacked every item with calm precision, tightening each strap until the seams whispered under tension. When the bugle sounded minutes later, she was already standing at attention, spotless, silent, unreadable. Outside, the fog rolled off the ocean like smoke, swallowing the morning in gray. Thompson's laughter broke through it. "Morning, Martinez," he called, adjusting his pack with exaggerated effort. "Sleep well, or were the ghosts of feminism keeping you up?" His friends laughed, loud and empty. Sarah didn't answer, she didn't even blink. "Eyes front," barked the drill sergeant Rodriguez. His voice cut through the chatter. "You're not here to talk, you're here to earn. Let's see which of you's still standing by sundown." The day's agenda was brutal. Long-distance run, strength circuit, then combat drills until dusk. The kind of day designed to separate endurance from ego. By mile 3, several recruits had already dropped back, gasping. Sarah kept a steady rhythm, breathing even, steps light. She didn't chase anyone, didn't look behind. Her focus was pure tunnel, 1 foot, 1 breath, repeat. Rodriguez's ATV rolled beside her at one point. He didn't speak, just looked, noted, then drove on. She didn't need his approval, but she caught something in his expression, the faintest trace of respect. The respect Thompson craved and hadn't earned. By noon, the recruits were soaked, mud-splattered, running on fumes. Lunch was nothing more than 10 minutes with a cold MRE and lukewarm water. Sarah sat on the far edge of the mess tent, alone again, eating mechanically. Kelly approached, tray in hand. "Mind if I?" "Sit," Sarah said simply. Kelly slid across, exhaling hard. "This place is insane. They're trying to kill us." "They're trying to see who wants it enough," Sarah replied. Kelly hesitated. "You know the guys, they're getting worse." Sarah looked up. "Worse how?" "Your gear, the missing stuff. I heard Thompson bragging last night. He thinks it's funny, says he, testing your composure. Sarah's jaw tightened, but her eyes stayed calm. Then I'm passing his test. Kelly frowned. You can report it, you know, they'd take it seriously. Sarah shook her head. If I can't handle this, I don't belong here. Kelly's voice softened. It's not about handling it, Sarah, it's about fairness. Sarah paused mid-bite, eyes drifting toward the open tent flap. Outside, waves crashed against the shore. Fairness isn't in the job description, she said. That afternoon brought rope climbs and log carries. Thompson's team, hers, was pushed harder than the rest. Whether by chance or design, she didn't know. Up and over, Rodriguez barked. Sarah grabbed the rope. Her hands burned instantly, raw skin scraping hemp. She climbed, not fast, not slow, efficient. Below her, Thompson grunted something about showing off. Halfway up, someone's boot slammed the rope beneath her, jolting her grip. She looked down, saw Thompson glance away, pretending not to notice. Her arm muscles screamed, but she recovered, forced herself higher, and rang the bell at the top. Back on the ground, Rodriguez's eyes locked on her for a second. He didn't say a word, but he'd seen it. She could tell. The day ended with exhaustion layered over bruises. Back in the barracks, Sarah peeled off her uniform and checked the cuts on her palms. Blood mixed with dirt. She cleaned them quietly. Around her, laughter rolled, Thompson's voice leading the chorus. "Hey Martinez," he called across the bunks. "Maybe tomorrow we'll give you a pink rope, might match your nails." The room chuckled. Sarah didn't look up. She wrapped her hands with gauze and said nothing. Inside, though, something cold had started to settle, not defeat, not bitterness, just resolve. The next morning's challenge pushed everyone past the breaking point. 5-mile endurance run before dawn, then weapons drill at the range. The sea air was freezing, wind cutting through sweat-soaked uniforms. Sarah ran in silence, boots crunching wet sand. Thompson's group trailed beside her, muttering. She caught fragments, "She'll slow us down, watch her drop." But she didn't drop. She finished ahead of most. And when they reached the range, she handled her rifle with surgical calm, every motion exact, every reload smooth. Until the inspection. Rodriguez stopped at her station, examining her weapon, his brow furrowed. "Martinez, this firing pin's loose." Her stomach sank. She knew she hadn't made that mistake. She took the rifle back, fingers working quickly. The component had been deliberately loosened, not by accident, a setup. She reassembled it without missing a beat, handed it over again. "Fixed, Sergeant." Rodriguez stared at her hard, then nodded slowly. "Pass." He moved on. But Sarah knew the truth. Someone had crossed a new line. That night, fatigue blurred everything: training, meals, showers, thoughts. When she finally lay in her bunk, she stared at the ceiling, motionless. Kelly whispered from across the aisle. "You okay?" "Fine." "You don't look fine." Sarah turned her head slightly. "I've been through worse." Kelly hesitated, then asked quietly, "What makes you keep going?" Sarah didn't answer at first. Her eyes flicked toward her sleeve, the hidden tattoo beneath it. "Someone once told me that strength isn't about proving others wrong," she said finally. "It's about proving the right people right." Kelly didn't reply, but she understood. The next few days brought escalation. Someone hid Sarah's compass before a navigation exercise. She found it replaced with one whose needle had been bent, subtly, maliciously. During the night op, she followed the faulty bearing straight into a dead zone miles off course, alone, disoriented. The cold bit through her uniform. The dark pressed close, but panic never came. She took a breath, looked up at the sky, and found Polaris. Her father had once taught her that trick on a camping trip. "Stars don't lie," he'd said, "even when people do." Using landmarks and constellations, she found her way back hours later, mud-caked, exhausted but not defeated. Rodriguez was waiting at the gate. "Martinez," he said, "what happened out there?" My compass failed, Sergeant. I used stars and terrain to return. He took the compass from her, inspected it. The needle was bent clean. Tampered, he said, then looked at her. You know who? Sarah stood at attention. No, Sergeant. He watched her for a long moment. You remind me of someone I trained with years ago. Same eyes, same quiet fire. Sarah didn't respond. Rodriguez nodded once. Good, keep it that way, because the hardest tests aren't physical, they're moral. His words stuck with her all night. Moral. It wasn't about survival anymore. It was about what kind of person you became under fire. By week 3, the hostility turned to open sabotage. Thompson's crew operated like a shadow, laughing to her face, whispering behind her back. But every failure they tried to engineer became another chance for her to rise. She started to notice small shifts, recruits who used to ignore her now watching quietly, maybe wondering if they'd been on the wrong side. Kelly stood closer during drills, more protective, less naive. Even Rodriguez seemed to linger whenever Thompson's group worked near her. The balance was changing. Still, it came to a head during a team-building exercise, the kind meant to expose leadership potential. They had to plan and execute a mock rescue under time pressure. Thompson, self-appointed leader, froze her out completely. We don't need your input, Martinez. Just follow orders. She did until the plan failed spectacularly. Miscommunication, poor timing, chaos. Thompson immediately turned on her. If some people didn't try to improvise. Rodriguez's whistle cut through the shouting. Enough, we'll debrief after chow. Sarah said nothing, though her pulse hammered. But she saw it, the glance Rodriguez gave her, the small mark he made on his clipboard. He knew. That night she lay awake again, the room filled with the rustle of restless recruits. Anger pulsed behind her ribs, steady and sharp. She'd endured weeks of sabotage and humiliation, but it wasn't the cruelty that hurt. It was the waste. They didn't understand that she wasn't here to outshine anyone. She was here to serve, to become the kind of soldier her father had been: steady, silent, selfless. Rolling up her sleeve, she looked at the tattoo again, the lines glinting faintly in the low light. The eagle, the anchor, the inscription. It grounded her, reminded her. Tomorrow would be worse, she knew it. Rumors whispered that Hell Week was next. 3 days of no sleep, endless pain, total breakdown. Perfect. Because pain didn't scare her anymore. What scared her was failing to become the person she was meant to be. She closed her eyes, and in the darkness came a memory, her father's voice, laughing over the crackle of a campfire years ago. You've got my stubbornness, he'd said. Use it right and it'll save you. Use it wrong and it'll break you. She smiled faintly. Tomorrow she'd find out which one it would be. And she promised herself, whispered into the dark. I won't let you down, Dad, not this time. The alarm didn't ring. It screamed. Air horns blasted through the barracks, yanking every recruit out of dreams and into chaos. Boots hit the floor. Cots slammed. The air reeked of sweat and fear. Out, out, out. Instructors stormed through the aisles, pounding metal trash cans with batons. The sound was war itself, loud, merciless, endless. Sarah was already on her feet, pulling her gear on in practiced silence. The others fumbled. Thompson cursed. Someone dropped a boot. The clock read 02:00 a.m. It had begun. Hell Week. Outside, the Pacific wind cut like a knife. The beach was black, the surf a dull roar under the moonlight. Floodlights turned the sand into a ghostly stage. Sergeant Rodriguez's voice roared above the wind. Welcome to the part where most of you quit. 72 hours. No sleep, minimal food, pain, exhaustion, confusion. If you don't want it bad enough, now's your chance to walk away. No one moved, not yet. Pride held them still. Rodriguez smiled, the kind of smile that promised suffering. All right then, let's run. They did. 5 miles, full gear, sand so soft it swallowed boots, waves crashing cold against shins. The sound of labored breathing filled the night, broken by shouted orders and the faint hiss of wind through the dunes. By the second mile, the line began to fragment. Recruits staggered, fell, vomited. The instructors didn't stop them. That was the point. Sarah kept pace in silence, her rhythm steady, her eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. Her lungs burned, but she didn't fight it. She breathed through it, one controlled exhale at a time. Behind her, Thompson's voice came, low and mocking. "You still here, Martinez? Thought you'd have folded by now." She ignored him. A few steps later, his boot caught the back of hers, deliberate. She stumbled, caught herself, and kept moving. Another step, another nudge, then a shoulder bump. "Having trouble keeping up," he panted. "Maybe this isn't your kind of marathon." Sarah's jaw tightened. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. Instead, she shifted her stride, found a gap, and surged ahead. The wind roared louder, waves hammering the shore. When the group reached the checkpoint, Sarah was near the front. Thompson was not. Rodriguez dismounted, his ATV scanning faces. "Get used to this feeling," he said. "You'll hate it before sunrise." Sunrise felt like another lifetime away. Next came the obstacle course, redesigned for Hell Week. Walls higher, trenches deeper, barbed wire lower, every step another reason to quit. Sarah's boots sank into the mud. Her uniform clung heavy to her skin, her muscles screamed, and yet she kept moving. At one point, Thompson muttered loud enough for the others to hear, "Watch the princess fall." But she didn't. She climbed, crawled, rolled, fought. When her fingers slipped, she found new purchase. When her legs trembled, she gritted her teeth and pushed harder. By dawn, she was unrecognizable, soaked, filthy, trembling from exhaustion. And smiling. Because pain was the great equalizer. Here, gender didn't matter, only grit. After a quick ration and a swig of water, the recruits were thrown into the surf. Freezing water swallowed them as the instructors yelled, "Link arms, stay tight." Waves crashed over their faces. Cold needles stabbed every nerve. Some screamed, some prayed. Sarah stayed silent, lips blue, eyes open to the horizon. Her mind drifted back to a memory she rarely touched, her father's funeral, the way the wind had howled across the cemetery. The cold had felt the same then, too, biting, merciless, honest. You can't fake strength in the cold, she thought. It either lives in you or it doesn't. Hours blurred, time dissolved. By the second night, hallucinations began. Shapes in the fog, voices that weren't real. Even Thompson's arrogance began to falter. His swagger turned into a quiet desperation that Sarah could almost pity. Almost. During a sand crawl exercise, he collapsed beside her, chest heaving, face gray. "You enjoying this?" he gasped. "No," Sarah said evenly. "That's the point." Rodriguez's voice bellowed from somewhere ahead. "Move, move. I see you slowing down, Martinez." She didn't slow, even when her hands bled again through torn bandages, even when her shoulders burned like fire. By day 2, food was scarce, sleep non-existent. The instructors took turns breaking morale. "Quitting, easy," one shouted. "Just say the word, ring the bell, go home." A silver bell hung from a wooden post near the mess area. Every few hours, someone rang it. Each clang echoed across the beach, a reminder of another dream dying. Sarah refused to look at it. That night, the ocean exercise returned, underwater navigation with full gear. Cold, black water, weighted packs, timed breath holds. Thompson was beside her again, still clinging to his pride. The signal horn blared and they dove. Visibility, 0. The water pressed against Sarah's chest, squeezing her lungs. She counted heartbeats, 1, 2, 3, then found her rhythm, kicking forward, compass in hand. Halfway through, something thudded against her shoulder. A weight, one of Thompson's dive weights, dropped conveniently in her path. She veered, lost precious seconds. Air dwindled. Pressure screamed in her ears. She surfaced, gasping, just short of the target. But she had followed every rule, completed the course. Thompson surfaced too, coughing. "Lost my grip," he said, feigning innocence. Rodriguez's voice echoed from the pier. "Martinez, solid effort. Thompson, slower every time I see you." Sarah didn't smile, but she felt it justice in silence. Later, during debrief, Thompson tried to regain his edge. "Guess the sergeant's got a soft spot," he muttered. Sarah looked at him, eyes cold. Maybe he just knows what effort looks like. It was the first time she'd spoken back, and for a moment he had no answer. The third night was the breaking point. No sleep, no comfort, just rain. Freezing sheets poured over the camp, turning the sand into sludge. The recruits were ordered to build defensive positions, trenches that filled faster than they could dig. Sarah's fingers were numb, her lips cracked, her muscles trembling. She could feel her body begging to stop, but something deeper, something older, refused. She thought of her father again, the sound of his voice the last time she saw him. "Be brave for your mom, kiddo. I'll be home soon." He hadn't come home. She promised herself that his death would mean something, that his name, carved into stone, would not be the end of his story. That promise burned now, hotter than the cold around her. When dawn broke on the third day, she looked like hell itself, but she was still standing. Rodriguez gathered them on the beach, voices hoarse, eyes hollow. "Half of you are gone," he said flatly. "The rest of you, you're not here because of strength. You're here because you refuse to break." He looked straight at Sarah. "And some of you, you're just getting started." Thompson scowled, dirt streaking his face. "Some people got lucky." Rodriguez heard it. "Luck," he stepped closer. "Let me tell you something, recruit, luck doesn't run 5 miles through surf, carry 60 pounds, and still beat you to the finish line. That's not luck. That's heart." Thompson's jaw tightened. The recruits were sent into another test, a combined endurance and tactics challenge. They were to navigate terrain, execute a simulated mission, and hold position under stress. Rodriguez assigned Sarah as a squad leader. Thompson was in her unit. It was no accident. The air was thick with tension. When she gave orders, he ignored them. When she asked for status updates, he muttered. But when the exercise began, everything changed. An unexpected problem, a simulated ambush, threw the team into chaos. Thompson froze, panic spread. Sarah took over instinctively. "Cover the left flank. Phillips on me. Thompson, you're on rear security." Her voice cut through confusion, calm, clear, commanding. Even the instructors, watching from a distance, exchanged glances. Under her leadership, the team regrouped, completed the mission, and exfiltrated without a simulated casualty. When they returned, Rodriguez was waiting. "Good work, Martinez," he said quietly. "That's leadership." She saluted, but before she could step away, Thompson's voice came again, bitter, cracked. "She disobeyed my order to fall back." Rodriguez turned his gaze on him. "You froze, recruit. She adapted. There's a difference." The humiliation was visible. For the first time, Thompson had nothing left to hide behind. That night the rain stopped. The sea was calm again, the calm that comes after something breaks. The recruits sat near the barracks, silent, too tired to talk. Sarah stared at the horizon. The moonlight reflected off the ocean, pale and cold. Kelly sat beside her, voice barely a whisper. "I don't know how you're still standing." Sarah shrugged. "I don't either." "Thompson hates you," Kelly said softly, "but he's scared of you now." Sarah turned her head slightly, the faintest ghost of a smile crossing her lips. "Good. Fear's the first step toward respect." Kelly laughed quietly, but there was admiration behind it. Sarah looked down at her hands, torn, blistered, raw. "You ever think about why we do this?" she asked. Kelly frowned. "To prove we can." Sarah shook her head. to find out who we really are when everything else is gone. The wind picked up again, rustling the flags overhead. In the distance, the bell, that cursed silver bell, hung motionless, still catching faint moonlight. Sarah stared at it. So many had rung it this week. So many had walked away. She wondered what her father would say if he were here, watching her now, covered in mud, eyes bloodshot, body near collapse. He'd probably laugh, tell her she was crazy. Then he'd add what he always did when life got impossible. "You're stronger than you think, kiddo. You just haven't proved it to yourself yet." She exhaled slowly, the salt wind stinging her eyes. Hell Week wasn't over. Not yet. But something had shifted, not just in the group but inside her. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was changing. Becoming the kind of soldier her father would have recognized. And maybe, just maybe, the kind the world wasn't ready for. The waves crashed again, softer this time. The night held its breath. And Sarah Martinez, trembling and unbroken, whispered to the darkness, "I'm still here." The sea was calm again. Too calm. For 72 hours, it had roared, beaten, tested, and punished. Now it just whispered, as if watching to see who was still standing. Half the recruits were gone. The others looked hollow, ghosts wearing mud and uniforms. Sarah stood in the morning light, her body trembling from exhaustion but her mind sharper than ever. Her reflection stared back at her from the polished surface of her canteen, bruised, battered, but unbroken. Hell Week was over. Sergeant Rodriguez walked down the line, his voice low but carrying through the salt air. "If you're still here, you've earned this moment, but don't celebrate yet. This isn't the end. This is where it starts." His eyes found Sarah for half a second. He didn't smile, but he nodded. That was enough. They were dismissed for a few hours of rest, their first real rest in days. Sarah fell onto her bunk without undressing. She didn't dream, she just dropped into blackness. When she woke, the sun was high. Her body screamed for more sleep, but the world had moved on. The camp buzzed with rumor. Whispers carried through the barracks like static. "They're sending a SEAL team here." Something about advanced observation. "I heard a commander's coming, a legend." Sarah didn't listen, not really. She learned long ago that rumors were just noise. But when Sergeant Rodriguez called for formation that evening, and a pair of black SUVs rolled up the gravel road, even she felt it, the shift in the air. The doors opened and 6 men stepped out, Navy SEALs, not recruits, not instructors, operators. Their bearing was unmistakable, quiet, deadly, disciplined. And in front of them walked a man whose presence changed the atmosphere completely. He was tall, broad-shouldered, hair streaked with gray, eyes the color of a storm about to break. The kind of man who didn't need to shout to be obeyed. Commander James Mitchell. Every recruit straightened automatically. Even Rodriguez adjusted his stance. Mitchell scanned the formation, gaze sharp but not unkind, at ease. He walked slowly down the line, studying faces. "You've just finished one of the toughest phases of military training anywhere in the world. If you're still standing, you've already proved something about your body. What we'll find out now is what your mind and heart are made of." He stopped beside Sarah, eyes flicking briefly toward her arm, just long enough to register her name tag. "Martinez." "Yes, sir." "Good," he moved on. She didn't know why that single word carried so much weight, but it did. The next morning, the recruits gathered for a new kind of test, a team assault simulation designed for the visiting SEALs to observe. Real weapons, real tactics, simulated combat fire. It was meant to evaluate leadership, decision-making, and composure under chaos. Thompson, desperate to reclaim his lost pride, volunteered as squad leader. Rodriguez looked at Mitchell, who nodded once. "Fine," Rodriguez said. "Let's see if you can lead without tripping over your ego." Sarah was assigned to Thompson's team again. Of course she was. They lined up near the training field, a maze of concrete walls, sandbag bunkers, and mock enemy targets. The instructors briefed the scenario. Assault an enemy position, plant a simulated explosive, extract without casualties. Thompson turned to his team, map in hand. His tone was clipped, performative. Martinez, you're on the left flank, it's exposed. You think you can handle it? Sarah looked at him steadily. I can handle it. He grinned, satisfied. Good, try not to get hit. The whistle blew. They moved. Gunfire cracked across the range, blanks but loud enough to rattle nerves. Smoke bombs erupted, filling the air with gray haze. Sarah sprinted from cover to cover, weapon at the ready, ears ringing with simulated explosions. Her job was to advance and suppress, create space for the main team to push forward. It was dangerous work, and she knew Thompson had chosen it for that reason. Still, she didn't hesitate. Left clear, she called into her radio. Copy, came a distorted voice through static. They were making progress, until a blast echoed to her right. A training mine, harmless but loud, had gone off beneath recruit Davis's boots. He hit the ground, dead in simulation terms. Man down, Sarah shouted. Thompson's voice crackled over the headset. Abort mission, fall back. But from her position, she could see something he couldn't, the target bunker, 30 meters ahead, exposed for a few seconds. A clear path. She hesitated, just long enough to weigh orders against opportunity. You follow or you lead, not both. Sarah sprinted forward. Bullets of paint whizzed past. Smoke burned her lungs. She dove behind a barrier, rolled, and came up firing. Her shots hit every target in sequence. Then, crawling low, she reached the bunker, planted the training charge, and rolled away just as the timer beeped. Objective secured, she called. The horn blared, end of simulation. The instructors' voices barked over radios. Exercise complete. Silence followed. Sarah stood, chest heaving, covered in dirt. She looked down, her sleeve had torn during the dive. The fabric hung loose, revealing ink beneath it. Not just ink, the tattoo. The one she'd hidden since day one. Thompson, approaching to scold her, froze mid-step. His face went pale. What the hell is that? Others turned, even the instructors. On Sarah's upper arm, exposed in the sunlight, the design stood clear and fierce. A Marine Corps eagle, globe, and anchor intertwined with a Navy anchor, surrounded by dates, names, and coordinates. And at its heart, an inscription. Gunnery Sergeant Roberto Martinez, USMC, KIA, Afghanistan, 2011. The whispers began immediately. Wait, Martinez. That's her dad. Holy. Sarah's pulse thundered. For once, not from exhaustion, from something deeper. The private part of her life laid bare for everyone to see. Kelly stepped closer, eyes wide. Sarah, is that your father? Sarah nodded silently. Before she could say anything else, a calm voice cut through the noise. Martinez, front and center. Commander Mitchell. He was walking toward her. The crowd parted instinctively, like a tide moving around a rock. His gaze wasn't angry, just intent. Sarah snapped to attention. Her heart hammered in her chest. Thompson saw his chance. Sir, recruit Martinez disobeyed a direct order during the simulation. She compromised. I wasn't talking to you, recruit, Mitchell said sharply, eyes never leaving Sarah. I said Martinez. Thompson froze. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah stepped forward. Sir. Mitchell stopped a foot away from her, eyes dropping briefly to the tattoo before returning to her face. For several long seconds, no one moved. Even the surf seemed to go quiet. Then Mitchell spoke, voice measured but low. Rodriguez, I'll speak with this recruit privately. Yes, sir. Sarah followed him past the range, across the compound, into the quiet shadow behind the main building. The world felt smaller there, no wind, no chatter, just the distant echo of waves. Mitchell stopped, hands behind his back, staring at nothing. When he finally spoke, his tone had changed, softer, human. At ease, Martinez. She relaxed slightly, unsure what to expect. That tattoo, he said quietly, I know it. Her eyes flicked to his. Sir. He nodded slowly. Roberto Martinez, your father, Force Recon, Afghanistan. Her throat tightened. Yes, sir. Mitchell's gaze shifted, distant now, like he was looking through years. I knew him, served with him, 3 deployments together. Sarah froze. You knew my father. He nodded again. He saved my life twice. Saved a lot of lives, actually. He was the kind of Marine who didn't know how to quit. I've thought about him every day since 2011. Sarah felt her composure falter for the first time in years. Sir, I didn't know you were there. Mitchell's voice dropped even lower. He was covering our retreat after we walked into an ambush in Helmand Province. He volunteered to stay behind, buy us time. Held the line for 27 minutes under heavy fire. We got everyone out. When we came back for him, he stopped. His jaw tightened. Sarah swallowed hard. They said he died instantly. Mitchell shook his head. No, he died fighting, and because of him 12 people made it home, including me. For a long moment, the only sound was the ocean. Mitchell exhaled slowly. I made a promise that day that if I ever met his family, I'd do whatever I could to help them reach their potential, to honor what he gave up for us. Sarah blinked back tears. Sir, I never wanted special treatment. I didn't want anyone to. He held up a hand. And you haven't asked for it. That's what makes this remarkable. You earned every inch you've climbed. He paced slowly, eyes thoughtful. I've been watching you since day one. Your composure, your silence under pressure. The harassment you've endured, yes, I know about it. We all do. And through it all, you never broke discipline. That's rare. Sarah didn't know what to say. Finally, Mitchell stopped in front of her. Tell me, Martinez, what are you here for? What do you want from this life? The question hung heavy in the air. Sarah thought of the folded flag, the promise, the years of doubt and determination. She took a steady breath. To serve where I can make the most difference, she said. To live up to my father's name, not by being him, but by being worthy of him. And to prove that anyone who's willing to endure can belong here. Mitchell nodded slowly, approvingly. That's the right answer. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded paper, orders. Effective immediately, you're being advanced to Phase 2 training, advanced tactical and leadership development. You'll train directly under my supervision. Sarah blinked. Sir, what? It's not a gift, he said firmly. It's recognition. You've already passed every test that matters. Now it's time for the next one. Her breath caught. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Mitchell said. Then say nothing else. Let your performance speak. Sarah nodded slowly. Yes, sir. As they walked back toward the compound, the sun began to set, gold bleeding into red across the horizon. Mitchell glanced at her once more. Your father would be proud. He always said his daughter would change the world one day. I think he might have been right. Sarah swallowed hard, the lump in her throat both painful and beautiful. When they re-entered the training yard, every eye turned to them. Thompson's face was pale, his confidence shattered. Mitchell faced the recruits. His voice carried across the compound like thunder. Recruits, what you're about to witness is what this program stands for. Character over comfort, discipline over arrogance, integrity over pride. He looked at Sarah. Recruit Martinez has been selected for immediate advancement to advanced training under my command. Silent, then a wave of stunned whispers. Kelly smiled through tears. Thompson's jaw went slack. And Sarah, she just stood there, steady, composed, and quiet. Mitchell's final words echoed through the gathering dusk. Some of you learned this week how to endure. But she taught you what dignity looks like when it's tested. Sarah didn't move, didn't speak. She just breathed the same slow, steady breath she'd taken on her first day. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the fatigue, beneath the scars, beneath the ink on her skin, she felt something rise. Not pride, not victory, something quieter. Peace. The next morning began with silence. Not peace, just the quiet that comes after a storm, when everyone waits to see what's left standing. Word of Sarah's promotion had spread across the base like wildfire. Some called it merit, others luck, a few whispered favoritism. Sarah ignored all of it. She learned long ago that silence could cut sharper than any reply. Still, she could feel their eyes on her as she stepped into formation. The weight of envy, disbelief, and maybe, deep down, reluctant respect. Thompson stood a few rows down. His uniform was crisp, his jaw set, but the confidence was gone. What remained was something darker, wounded pride wrapped in quiet resentment. Sergeant Rodriguez walked the line, clipboard in hand. His tone was almost casual. Some of you think promotions are about luck. Some of you think they're about favoritism. Let me make it clear, they're about proof. And every person here has been given the chance to prove themselves. His eyes passed over Sarah, then landed on Thompson. Some just wasted theirs. The recruits didn't move, but a current of tension ran through them like static. Later that morning, Commander Mitchell addressed the entire unit. The SEALs stood behind him, silent, formidable, watchful. Mitchell's voice was steady. In the field, there's no room for ego, only trust. The minute you start resenting someone else's performance, you've already failed your team. He scanned the crowd. His gaze found Thompson and held there for a second too long. We'll be running a full unit exercise today, tactical endurance, mixed command structure. Some of you will lead, some will follow. Either way, you'll learn which one you're ready for. He turned, gesturing to the map spread across the table beside him. This will be a 20-mile mixed-terrain simulation. No live ammo, but live stakes. The objective: extract a high-value target across hostile ground. You'll move as a unit, divided into 2 squads. Each squad will have its own commander. A pause, then Rodriguez will lead Alpha Squad. Martinez, you'll lead Bravo. Murmurs rippled through the ranks. A few jaws dropped. Thompson's face flushed. Sarah's heart thudded, but her posture didn't waver. Yes, sir. Mitchell nodded once. You've earned it, now prove it. The briefing ended. Recruits scattered to prepare. Thompson approached her near the armory, voice low and bitter. So this is it, huh? Daddy's legacy finally paying off. Sarah's hand froze on her rifle strap. She turned slowly, eyes calm. You still don't get it, do you? Oh, I get it, he sneered. You play the quiet victim, let everyone feel sorry for you, and suddenly the commander's your biggest fan. Sarah stepped closer, close enough for him to see the exhaustion in her eyes, the kind that came from surviving more than training. You think pity gets you through Hell Week. You think sympathy keeps your hands steady when the ocean's freezing and your mind's breaking. You're right about one thing, Thompson. You don't get it. He laughed under his breath. You're not better than me. Sarah's voice softened. No, but I stopped needing to prove I was. She walked past him, leaving the words to echo where pride had once lived. By afternoon, both squads were deep in the hills beyond the base. The simulation had begun. Alpha and Bravo advanced separately through the rough terrain, connected by radio and monitored remotely by Mitchell's SEAL observers. The mission parameters were clear: locate, secure, and extract the target before the opposing team intercepted. Sarah moved with quiet efficiency, reading the land like she'd been born to it. Mud, scrub, and silence, she'd learned to trust all 3. Kelly was at her flank whispering coordinates. Contact ahead, 200 meters, possible ambush. Sarah crouched, eyes narrowing through her scope. Dummy targets but positioned smartly. Someone from Alpha had set a trap. She smiled faintly. Rodriguez always did love surprises. She gave hand signals. 2 recruits flanked left, 2 covered right. She waited until the mock ambush revealed itself, then shifted formation and broke through the line, textbook precision. They advanced quickly, their teamwork clean and instinctive. Mitchell's voice crackled over the comm line, watching from command. "Bravo, your cohesion's solid. Keep your comms clear." Sarah replied, "Copy that, sir." Hours passed. The sun climbed, then started to fall again. Exhaustion crept in, but Sarah's focus only sharpened. Every decision felt measured, deliberate, moral. Then came the misdirection. Thompson, reassigned under Rodriguez's Alpha team, spotted Bravo's trail and made a choice. Against orders, he led a small detachment off course, determined to cut Sarah off and win the simulation himself. Ego was back, and it was about to cost him. Sarah's squad reached the ridge first, their objective in sight, a dummy hostage strapped inside a reinforced bunker. She ordered perimeter security and began strategizing the extraction. That's when she heard it, gunfire. Simulated but too close, wrong direction. Kelly checked her map. That's Alpha's zone. They're not supposed to be anywhere near us. Sarah's gut tightened, unless someone broke off. She motioned to her second in command. "Hold position, I'm checking it out." She moved through the trees, low and silent. What she found made her heart drop. Thompson and 2 recruits were pinned behind a ridge, under simulated fire from multiple automated turrets. 1 recruit was already down. The others were panicking. "Thompson," she shouted over the roar, "what the hell are you doing here?" He looked up, startled, pride evaporating into panic. "I thought I could flank your team, these turrets. The map was wrong." "Save it," she snapped. Crawling forward, she grabbed his arm and pulled him into better cover. Then she assessed the layout. The turrets were motion-triggered, sweeping predictable arcs. If timed right, she could move through the gap. It was risky, but leaving them wasn't an option. "On my count," she said. "When I move, you follow." Thompson shook his head. "You'll get hit." She almost laughed. "You think that's new?" 3, 2, 1. She ran. The turrets whirred, sensors flashing. Sarah Dove rolled, came up firing. The sensors caught her signal, 1 hit to the shoulder, simulated wound, but she kept moving. She reached the control panel, yanked a wire, and the system powered down. Silence. When she turned back, Thompson was staring at her like he didn't recognize her. "You're insane," he said quietly. "Maybe," she replied, "but I don't leave people behind." She helped the others to their feet. "Fall back to Bravo, stay low." When they rejoined her squad, Mitchell's voice came through the comms again, calm, deliberate. "Bravo team, report." "Objective secure," Sarah said. "Additional recruits recovered from Alpha's grid, minor injuries." A pause, then, "Copy that, proceed to extraction." By the time they reached the rendezvous point, dusk had painted the hills in amber and shadow. The exercise ended with a long whistle echoing through the valley. Back at base, both squads lined up for debrief, mud-streaked, silent, waiting. Mitchell stood before them, arms crossed, expression unreadable, Rodriguez beside him. He began without preamble. Today's exercise wasn't about tactics, it was about integrity. He glanced at Rodriguez. Alpha squad broke formation. 3 recruits went off mission. 1 nearly compromised the entire operation. Thompson's face drained of color. Mitchell continued, his tone quiet but razor-sharp. "In the real world, that kind of decision gets people killed, but it also gives others the chance to reveal who they are when everything falls apart." His gaze shifted to Sarah. Martinez demonstrated leadership under pressure, initiative under chaos, and, more importantly, character under betrayal. He turned to the unit. That's what makes a soldier, not rank, not lineage, character. Then more softly, and that's something no one can fake. No one spoke, even the ocean seemed to hush. Mitchell's eyes lingered on Thompson one last time. You'll have a disciplinary review in the morning. Until then, consider this your reminder: arrogance doesn't survive here. Only accountability does. He dismissed the group with a nod. Clean up, eat, sleep if you can. Later that night, the base was quiet again. The mess hall lights hummed softly, and the few who remained awake spoke in whispers. Sarah sat alone by the window, staring at the ocean. Her reflection looked older somehow, not in years, but in weight. Rodriguez approached with 2 cups of coffee. He slid one toward her without a word. She looked up. You didn't have to. I didn't, he said simply, but I wanted to. For a while they just sat there, listening to the faint crash of waves beyond the glass. You know, Rodriguez said finally, when you first showed up here, I thought you'd last maybe a week. Sarah smiled faintly. You wouldn't be the first. He chuckled. You proved me wrong. Hell Week didn't break you. The team didn't break you. Even your own commander's scrutiny didn't shake you. Wasn't about surviving, she said softly. It was about staying true. Rodriguez nodded. That's rare these days. She hesitated, then asked quietly, You knew about the sabotage, didn't you? He didn't answer right away. Let's just say I was watching, waiting to see how you'd handle it. And he smiled faintly. You handled it like a soldier, the kind your father would have respected. She looked down at her coffee, steam curling into the dim light. It still hurts, you know, being doubted, being hated for trying to belong. Rodriguez leaned back thoughtful. That's because you care. Most people stop caring long before they get strong. You didn't. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Rodriguez said, You ever wonder why Mitchell picked now to come here? Sarah shook her head. No. He didn't come for the unit, Rodriguez said quietly. He came for you. Her eyes lifted. For me. Rodriguez nodded. He's got plans, bigger than this camp. He sees something in you, Martinez, something that reminds him of, well, him. Sarah looked back out the window. The moonlight shimmered over the water, endless, cold, beautiful. I didn't come here to be seen, she said finally. I came to earn what no one can take away. Rodriguez smiled, rising. You already have. As he left, the room fell silent again. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the smell of salt and the faint echo of waves against steel. Sarah touched the edge of her tattoo beneath her sleeve, the one everyone had seen now, the one that changed everything. It wasn't just her father's memory anymore, it was her compass, her truth. She whispered softly, almost to herself. Sometimes strength isn't loud. Sometimes it's just the choice to keep showing up. She looked out at the horizon one last time. And somewhere out there, beyond the water, beyond the noise of doubt and failure and pride, she felt like someone was watching. Not judging. Not testing. Just proud. The ocean sighed, the night closed in. And Sarah Martinez sat in silence, not victorious, not broken, just real. The next morning came too quietly. It always did before something big. Sarah woke before dawn, the barracks still cloaked in half-light. For the first time in weeks there were no alarms, no drills, no shouting, just silence. And that silence felt heavier than any command. She dressed slowly, checked her boots, laced them tight. Her hands still bore faint scars from Hell Week, her knuckles rough, her palms calloused. They weren't just reminders of pain, they were proof. When she stepped outside, the base looked almost peaceful. The horizon burned with early light, sea mist curling over the sand. But near the command building, something was different. 3 military SUVs were parked outside, engines idling. Men in dark uniforms loaded sealed crates into the back. There were no insignias, no markings. And standing by the entrance, Commander Mitchell. He spotted her instantly. Martinez, walk with me. She followed without question. They moved past the training yard, down toward the shoreline, where the ocean met the concrete of the old dock. Mitchell's pace was slow, thoughtful. You've come far, he said quietly, further than most thought you could. Sarah didn't respond. Compliments always came with purpose. Mitchell stopped near the water, hands in his pockets. Tell me something. Do you still want this, even after everything it's cost you? She looked out at the waves. It hasn't cost me anything that wasn't worth losing. He nodded, almost smiling. Good answer. Then his tone shifted, lower, colder. Because what comes next isn't training, it's real. She turned to face him. Sir. He looked back toward the compound. Officially, you're being transferred for advanced field assessment. Unofficially, I'm hand-picking a team for a live mission. Off record, minimal footprint, maximum risk. Sarah's pulse kicked. Why me? Because you don't break, he said simply. And because I need someone who can follow orders and question them when it counts. He paused. There's something else you should know. From his pocket, he pulled a small, weathered envelope. The edges were frayed, the ink faded. He handed it to her. She hesitated. What is this? Mitchell's voice softened. Your father left it, years ago, with me. Sarah froze. The air seemed to vanish. He gave it to me before our last mission, Mitchell continued quietly. Told me to deliver it to you if he didn't make it back. Her fingers trembled slightly as she took the envelope. Her name was written across it, Sarah, in handwriting she'd never thought she'd see again. She didn't open it. Not yet, she couldn't. Mitchell looked at her for a long moment. He was a good man, brave, honest, but what made him special wasn't the battles he fought. It was the way he believed in people, even when they didn't believe in themselves. He turned back toward the trucks. You've got 12 hours to pack. The team wheels up at 200. You'll be briefed in transit. Understood, she said quietly. As Mitchell walked away, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of salt and engine fuel. Sarah stood there a long time, the envelope clutched in her hand, the ocean reflecting the first hints of morning gold. By nightfall, the base was alive again, not with drills but with purpose. Sarah sat in the back of a transport plane, headset on, helmet beside her, watching the shadows of the crew move across dim red light. The cargo hold smelled like steel and oil and adrenaline. Beside her sat 3 other operators, veterans, not recruits. There was Reyes, calm and analytical, Bennett, broad and quiet, and Cole, the youngest, eyes sharp with restless energy. None of them spoke much, but they didn't need to. The silence between them was the kind that only comes before real danger. Mitchell stood at the front, briefing in progress. The target is an insurgent cell operating out of a remote coastal settlement south of Manila. We've received credible intel that they're transporting stolen U.S. tech classified drone components. We need them back. Quietly. He glanced toward Sarah. Martinez, you'll handle recon and overwatch. We'll insert via halo jump. No signatures, no traces. Extraction window is 2 hours. Any longer and we risk local detection. Sarah nodded, every muscle in her body ready. Mitchell continued. You've all done this before, except Martinez, but don't let that fool you. She's earned her place here. Bennett looked at her then, a long, considering look, then gave a small nod. Respect given, not asked for. The engines roared louder. The red light flickered to green. Let's move, Mitchell said. One by one, they stepped into the dark. The air hit like a storm. Cold, fast, infinite. Sarah's heart pounded as she dropped through black sky, city lights faint and distant below. The rush of wind drowned out everything thought, fear, sound. Only rhythm remained. She counted 1,000, 2,000, 3. Parachute deployed, a violent snap, then silence again. She floated through the night, the sea a sheet of liquid ink beneath her. the coastline stretching ahead like a scar of dim light. When her boots hit the sand, she rolled smoothly, unhooked, packed, and moved. "Bravo team, all accounted," Mitchell's voice whispered through comms. "Proceed to target coordinates." They advanced through jungle brush, silent and methodical, crickets, ocean, distant thunder. Sarah took point on Overwatch, climbing a low ridge to scan the compound below. Through her scope, she saw what the intel hadn't said. Guards, more heavily armed than expected, and something else, cages. "Commander," she whispered, "you're going to want to see this." Mitchell crawled up beside her, adjusted his night optics. His jaw tightened. "Hostages," he said quietly. "Civilians." "Not sure." Plans shifted instantly. The mission wasn't just about stolen tech anymore, it was about lives. Mitchell signaled the team to split. Reyes and Bennett would secure the tech. Sarah and Cole would handle Overwatch and support extraction. Minutes ticked like hours, every movement deliberate, every shadow dangerous. Then noise, a shout, gunfire. The compound erupted. Sarah zeroed in through her scope. "Commander, you've been compromised." "I see them," Mitchell replied. "Stay focused." She exhaled slowly, centering herself. Breath steady, aim true. The first shot cracked through the night, clean, precise. A guard fell. Another. Her heartbeat synced with every squeeze of the trigger. Through smoke and chaos, she caught glimpses of Mitchell moving through the compound, calm under fire, motion like poetry. Reyes' voice came over comms. "We've got the crates, but we've got more hostiles inbound." "Fall back to Point Bravo," Mitchell ordered. "Martinez, cover them." "Copy." Her shots tracked the team as they retreated through the narrow path. But then, a flash muzzle fire from the left flank. Cole went down, shouting. "Cole's hit." Sarah shifted instantly, rolled position, and fired. The attacker dropped, but Cole wasn't moving. She sprinted from her perch, sliding into cover beside him. Blood soaked his shoulder, bad but survivable. "Stay with me," she said. "I'm fine," he gasped. "Just feels like a sledgehammer." Mitchell appeared seconds later, grabbing Cole's vest. "We're leaving now." They reached the extraction zone just as the sky began to pale. The evac chopper hovered above, blades slicing mist. Bennett hauled the tech crates aboard. Reyes covered the rear. Sarah and Mitchell lifted Cole in. "Everyone in," Mitchell shouted over the roar. Sarah gave a thumbs up. The bird lifted, rising fast into the dawn. For the first time since jumping, she let herself breathe. Back at the base, the debrief room was dark except for a single overhead light. The team sat in silence, exhaustion etched into every line of their faces. Mitchell entered last, dropping his helmet onto the table. "Mission success. Tech recovered. 1 injury, 0 fatalities. Not bad for a first run." He looked at Sarah. "Your Overwatch saved lives. You did good work." She nodded quietly. "It was a team effort." He smirked. "You sound like your father." That name again. It still hurt, but less now, because for the first time it felt lighter. When the others were dismissed, Mitchell stayed behind. "You opened it yet?" Sarah shook her head. "No, not yet." He nodded. "Then now's the time." He left her alone. Sarah stared at the envelope for a long time before she finally tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, creased and yellowed, written in her father's handwriting. She read slowly, lips trembling. "Sarah, if you're reading this, I didn't make it back. That's the job, but don't let my end define yours. You were always braver than you knew. I saw it even when you didn't. The world will test you, kiddo. It'll doubt you. Sometimes it'll break you. But promise me one thing, don't fight to be seen. Fight to be remembered for what you did when no one was watching. And when you feel like you can't go on, look for the horizon. That's where I'll be." "Dad." Her vision blurred. Tears rolled silently, falling onto the page. She pressed it to her chest, eyes closing, breathing in the ache and peace that came together. For a long time, she sat there, the hum of the bass around her fading into the background. When she finally looked up, the first light of dawn was spilling through the window. The horizon. Exactly where he said he'd be. The door opened softly. Mitchell stood there watching her. "Everything okay?" Sarah folded the letter carefully. "It is now." He nodded. "Good, because the real work's just beginning." She smiled faintly, eyes still damp. "I figured." Mitchell stepped closer. "You've got a choice, Martinez. You can stay here, keep training, or you can join my task unit. We operate off record. High risk, small team, full discretion. You'll see the world at its best and worst." Sarah looked at the horizon again, gold now, alive, infinite. "I didn't come this far to stand still," she said. Mitchell smiled, that rare kind of smile that carried respect. "Then welcome to the real thing." He extended his hand. She took it firm, steady, resolute. Outside, the waves rolled against the shore, the same way they always had. But something inside her had shifted forever. She wasn't just her father's daughter anymore. She was her own soldier. And somewhere deep in her heart, she heard his voice again, soft, proud, steady. "You did good, kiddo, real good." The world looked different from the inside of a classified mission. Quieter, colder, and somehow lonelier. Sarah sat strapped inside the aircraft's dimly lit bay, the hum of the engines thrumming in her chest. The team was smaller now, hand-picked, lethal, silent. Mitchell, Reyes, Bennett, Sarah. 4 names, no insignias, no rank. Only trust. They were flying over the Indian Ocean under blackout conditions. Destination, undisclosed. Mitchell's voice broke the drone of the engines. "Mission brief, final phase. We're heading to an island off the coast of Somalia. A rogue militia's holding a network technician, one of ours. They've got encrypted data they shouldn't have. The goal is simple. Recover the intel, extract the asset, no civilian casualties." Sarah nodded, absorbing every detail. The stakes were clear. But the way he said it, no civilian casualties, carried weight, like a promise he'd had to make before. The plane shook slightly as it hit turbulence. In the red glow of the cabin lights, she glanced at Mitchell. He looked calm, but his jaw was tight. Something about this mission felt different. Bennett noticed it too. "Sir," he said quietly, "intel reliable." Mitchell hesitated before answering. "It's as reliable as intel ever is." That wasn't comforting. Reyes leaned in, voice low. "Translation, something's off." Sarah stayed silent. She learned that words carried cost here. Silence was safer. Mitchell's tone hardened again. "Gear up, we hit ground in 10." The night swallowed them whole. Their small craft touched down on the island's southern shore. Dark sand, jagged rocks, humid air thick with the scent of salt and diesel. They moved inland fast, weapons ready, night vision cutting through the dark like green fire. Sarah's role was overwatch and communications relay. She set up position along a ridge, overlooking the compound. Through her scope, she saw it, a cluster of tin-roofed huts, dim floodlights and shadows packing the perimeter. She counted 12 guards, 2 trucks, 1 satellite dish. Mitchell's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Good eyes. Reyes, Bennett, flank right. Martinez, you're my eyes, call it tight." She watched as the team moved through the shadows, ghosts among ghosts. Every motion smooth, disciplined. Then something caught her eye. Beyond the compound, a smaller hut, unlit, but movement inside small, frantic, not soldiers, civilians. "Commander," she whispered, "I've got visuals on non-combatants. 2, maybe 3, looks like locals, they're tied up." A pause. "Civilians?" "Affirmative." Mitchell cursed under his breath. "Intel said there were no hostages." "What's the call?" Sarah asked. He hesitated. "Mission priority is the technician. We can't risk alerting the compound." She stared through her scope. One of the civilians was trembling, hands bound, eyes wide, the kind of terror that didn't lie. "Sir, if we leave them—" "Martinez," he cut in, "stay on overwatch, we move on my command." His tone was final, but something in her chest tightened. The team advanced. 2 guards down, silenced. 3 more turned, never had the chance to shout. They breached the main building clean, precise, lethal. Sarah tracked their every move, calling patterns, angles, timing. Her voice steady, her aim steady. Then movement. A new truck rolled in from the North Road. Armed men jumped out, 8, maybe 9. "Commander, new hostiles inbound," she warned. "North entrance." "Copy, adjusting route." The firefight that followed was fast and brutal. The silencer phase was over. The compound exploded in noise, shouting, gunfire, chaos. Sarah shifted position, providing cover from above. She dropped 3 targets clean, her rifle humming with each recoil. Through the scope, she saw Reyes drag a man out of the building, the technician, hands zip-tied, alive. Mission objective secured. But the civilians, the hut was burning now, flames licking up the dry walls. Someone was still inside. "Commander," she said sharply, "the civilians." "Negative," Mitchell barked. "We don't have time." She hesitated, finger hovering on her comm switch. Then she saw it, a child's hand against the window, faint, desperate. Something inside her broke. "Commander, I'm moving," she said. "Martinez, that's an order." She cut the line. Heart pounding, she slid down the ridge, sprinting through smoke and dust. Bullets cracked past her ears. The hut's heat hit like a wall. She kicked the door, burst inside. Fire clawed at the walls. 2 people, a woman and a boy, tied near the corner. She cut their restraints, coughing through the smoke. "Come on," she shouted. The roof groaned above them. She dragged the woman up, pushed the boy toward the door. Outside, the world blurred, heat, sound, shouting. Mitchell's voice was back in her ear. "Martinez, where are you?" "Exiting the hut," she gasped. He cursed, then yelled to Reyes, "Cover her." They ran, all of them, through the burning chaos, through the blinding smoke, toward the extraction zone. When they finally reached the beach, the evac craft was waiting, engines screaming, rotors slicing the air. Reyes and Bennett shoved the technician aboard. The civilians stumbled in after. Sarah collapsed to her knees, coughing hard, smoke pouring from her lungs. Mitchell grabbed her by the vest, hauling her upright. "What the hell were you thinking?" She met his eyes, breath ragged. They were going to die. "That wasn't your call." "I made it anyway." Their eyes locked, fury, and something else burning between them. Then he exhaled, long and slow, the anger turning to something heavier. "You could have died back there." "So could they," she said quietly. He looked at her for a long time, then turned away. "Get on the bird." The flight back was wordless. Smoke still clung to her clothes. The civilian sat near the rear, wrapped in emergency blankets. The boy stared at her, not scared anymore, just grateful. When they landed, medics rushed them away. Mitchell stayed by the door, arms crossed, jaw like stone. As Sarah stepped off, he spoke without looking at her. "You disobeyed a direct order." "I saved lives," she said. "That's not the same thing." She turned to face him. "It should be." He didn't reply, just walked past her toward the command tent. 2 hours later, she stood outside his office, summoned for debrief. When she entered, he was alone. The room dim, the smell of salt and gun oil thick in the air. He didn't tell her to sit. "You disobeyed an order in the middle of an active mission," he said flatly. "That could have compromised the entire operation." Sarah stayed silent. "Say something," he demanded. She met his gaze. "If following an order means letting people burn, I'll take the reprimand." Mitchell's jaw tightened. He turned away, packing once, twice, then stopped. "Do you know why I brought you on this team?" "Because I didn't break." "No," he said quietly. Because I wanted to see if I could trust you with the kind of decisions no one should have to make. He faced her again. And tonight you made one of them. You went against command. But you also saved innocent lives. That's not failure, Martinez. That's leadership, the kind that doesn't need permission. She blinked, unsure. So I'm not being discharged. Mitchell actually smiled, a rare, tired smile. You're not off the hook either. There's paperwork, of course. But if you're asking if I'd want you on my team again, yes. Sarah let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. He continued, softer now. Your father once did the same thing, went off script, saved a family during a raid, cost him a medal, earned him my respect forever. The words landed like a quiet truth she hadn't known she needed. He said once, Mitchell added, that the hardest part of this job isn't doing what's right, it's living with it afterward. Sarah looked down. Maybe that's the test I failed. He shook his head. No, that's the test you passed. Silence filled the room again, heavy, but not hostile. Finally he said, get some rest, you've earned it. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her at the door. Oh, and Martinez. Yes, sir. He nodded toward the window. Outside, dawn was breaking again, pink light spilling over the horizon. Next time you follow your conscience, make sure you come back to tell me about it. Sarah smiled faintly. Copy that. That night she couldn't sleep. The mission replayed in her head, the fire, the screams, the faces she saved, the faces she didn't see. She walked outside barefoot, the night air cool against her skin. The sea was calm again, always calm after chaos. For the first time since arriving, she felt something shift inside her. Not pride, not even relief, just clarity. She realized that she hadn't come here to be perfect. She'd come here to be true. The waves rolled in, hissing softly against the rocks. She whispered into the wind, voice barely audible. You were right, Dad. Sometimes it's not about orders. It's about the kind of person you still are when no one's watching. She looked toward the horizon again, that eternal line between sky and sea. And for a brief second, she imagined she saw someone standing there, proud, smiling, waiting. The moment passed, but the warmth stayed. The call came 3 weeks later. Not through the chain of command, not through protocol. Just a quiet message, she's needed again. Sarah was sitting on the pier when she got it. The ocean was calm, the sky painted with that deep gray that happens before dawn. Her reflection floated over the water, the same face, but changed. Older somehow. Not by years, but by truth. She didn't hesitate. She packed her gear, checked her rifle, and walked toward the hangar where Mitchell waited. He was standing by the tail of a black hawk, scanning a tablet. The look in his eyes told her this mission wasn't like the last. Where are we headed? She asked. He didn't answer immediately. He handed her the file instead. Inside were satellite images, desert terrain, ruins, smoke. Rogue cell near Kandahar, he said finally. They hit one of ours, ambushed a convoy, 4 KIA, 1 missing. They took a communications officer alive. Sarah felt her chest tighten. Kandahar. Afghanistan. Her father's final battlefield. Intel says they're using the old valley network near the Shahaikat Mountains, Mitchell continued. We move fast, extract the hostage, neutralize the threat. Small footprint, no air support. Understood, she said quietly. He studied her for a moment. You sure you want this one? She nodded once, more than any of them. The flight was silent except for the hum of rotors and the ticking of weapons being checked, rechecked, loaded. Bennett leaned back against the cabin wall, eyes half shut, the way seasoned soldiers do before hell begins. Reyes was across from Sarah, scanning his monitor. Mitchell sat up front, helmet off, his face a study in calm. But Sarah could read the tension beneath it. He'd stopped calling this routine. They touched down at 300 under cover of darkness. The valley stretched below, jagged, dry, and haunted by memory. The air smelled of dust and diesel. Sarah felt it the moment her boots hit the ground. The ghosts of her father's war were here, the hills that had taken him, the silence that had buried his name. They moved in low and fast, no words, just gestures. Every step through that terrain felt heavy with history. Her father had walked this same ground once, maybe even breathed the same cold air. When they reached the ridge overlooking the enemy camp, Sarah took point. Through her scope, she saw the hostage tied to a post, beaten but alive. Guards circled the perimeter. She whispered, "Target confirmed. 5 hostiles visible, 2 more inside the main structure." Mitchell nodded. "We move on my signal." Reyes took left flank, Bennett right. Sarah covered center overwatch. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. They moved like shadows. First guard down, silent. Second, a flash of blade. Third, choked sound, then nothing. The team closed in. Then chaos. A spotlight flared to life. Someone had tripped a wire. Alarms shattered the night. Gunfire erupted. "Contact south wall," Reyes shouted. Bullets shredded the dirt around them. Sarah dropped into prone, returning fire with precision. Her rounds found targets through smoke and panic. Mitchell's voice came through comms, steady, controlled. "Stay calm, maintain sectors." The hostage screamed. The guards began to move him, dragging him toward a truck. "I've got eyes," Sarah said. "They're moving him east." "Take the shot if you can," Mitchell ordered. She adjusted her scope, exhaled slow, and squeezed the trigger. The round hit the driver clean. The truck stalled. But more hostiles poured out from the huts, too many. "We're outnumbered," Bennett yelled. "Hold your ground." Then an explosion ripped through the compound. The ground shook. The flash threw Sarah backward, her ears ringing, world spinning. When her vision cleared, she saw Reyes down, motionless. Bennett crawling, blood streaming from his shoulder. "Reyes," she shouted. No response. Mitchell's voice cut through the static, louder now, desperate. "Martinez, fall back. That's an order." She looked toward Reyes, then at the hostage still bound near the burning truck. 2 lives, 2 impossible choices. Her hands trembled for half a second, then they steadied. She sprinted through the smoke. Mitchell swore into comms, "Martinez." She didn't answer. The air was thick with dust and fire. She reached Reyes first, pulse weak but alive. She dragged him into cover, grabbed his radio, then crawled toward the hostage. Bullets tore through metal inches from her head. She ducked, heart pounding, lungs burning. When she reached him, his eyes met hers, wild with fear. "Please." "I've got you," she said. She cut the bindings, slung him over her shoulder, and turned back toward the ridge. The world behind her roared with flames. Mitchell appeared through the haze, covering her with suppressive fire. "Move." They reached the evac zone, barely standing. The chopper hovered low, side door open, rotors screaming. Bennett pulled Reyes in. Sarah shoved the hostage inside. Mitchell was last, firing until the last possible second before leaping aboard. The helicopter rose, leaving the burning valley below. Sarah collapsed against the cabin wall, body shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. Mitchell dropped beside her, face streaked with soot, breathing hard. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he said softly, "You disobeyed again." She laughed just once, dryly. "You expected anything else." He exhaled. "Reyes would have died. I wasn't going to let him." He nodded slowly. "No, you were." They sat in silence as the desert faded beneath them, the ridges glowing faintly under the rising sun. Back at base, the medics rushed Reyes to the infirmary. Bennett followed, half-conscious. Mitchell stayed behind with Sarah, still covered in dust and blood. The debrief room was dim, quiet except for the distant hum of generators. Mitchell placed his weapon on the table, wiped his face with a rag, and looked at her. You keep forcing me to choose between discipline and admiration, he said. Sarah leaned back, exhaustion settling deep in her bones. Which wins this time? He smiled faintly, admiration barely. She didn't smile back. It doesn't feel like a win. He nodded, it's not supposed to. They sat there a while, no words needed. Just the sound of breathing, two soldiers who'd seen too much and still weren't done. Finally he said, Rays will live, you did good. She looked down at her hands, bruised, raw, trembling. Good isn't what it used to mean. Mitchell watched her carefully. You've changed. She nodded, I had to. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You remind me of your father more every day, but there's something he never had that you do. She frowned slightly. What's that? Mitchell smiled. The freedom to be more than just a soldier. The words hit harder than she expected. For a long moment she just breathed. What happens now? You rest, he said. Then we move again, different place, different fight, same reason. She looked at him, and what's the reason? Mitchell's gaze softened. To protect the kind of world your father believed in, even when it doesn't deserve protecting. Sarah nodded slowly, then I'm still in. He stood, placed a hand on her shoulder. I never doubted that. That night the wind carried sand instead of salt. The base lights glowed faintly through the dust, turning the air gold. Sarah walked outside, standing alone at the edge of the runway. The horizon stretched before her, vast, endless, quiet. Somewhere out there, her father's name was still etched into the land he died defending. But it didn't feel like a wound anymore. It felt like a guidepost. She reached into her pocket, pulled out his letter, the same one, creased and worn from being read too many times. She unfolded it slowly, whispering the words she already knew by heart. Don't fight to be seen. Fight to be remembered for what you did when no one was watching. She folded it again, tucked it close to her chest, and whispered into the wind. I get it now, Dad. She turned toward the hangar, where Mitchell's shadow moved under the floodlights, already preparing for the next mission. Her voice was quiet but steady. Sometimes you don't choose this life, it chooses you. And for the first time, she didn't resist that truth. She embraced it. Weeks later, the official report would list her as operative, exemplary conduct under duress. The files would say nothing about the civilians she saved, the men she pulled from fire, or the orders she broke to keep her soul intact. But those who'd served beside her, they'd remember. They'd remember the woman who never raised her voice, never bragged, never quit. The one who wore silence like armor. The one whose strength didn't come from being fearless, but from being afraid and doing it anyway. The horizon flared gold again, the sun breaking over the desert. Mitchell's voice echoed faintly in her memory. In this job, legacy isn't medals, it's moments, what you do when no one's there to see it. She smiled small, tired, real. Then she walked toward the light, toward the next mission, toward whatever waited beyond the horizon. Because that's what she'd learned. Strength wasn't loud, and courage didn't always survive with applause. Sometimes it just meant standing, breathing, choosing to try again. And as the world burned gold around her, Sarah Martinez, daughter, soldier, survivor, carried one truth that no war could take away. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.